its rightful market share, so is Ethiopia, so is Ghana, so is South Africa, and so is Nigeria. So that means Kenya needs to act fast. We need to put our actions behind what we are saying, and we don't have all the time in the world. So as an association, we are also pushing for speed in terms of action from government in putting these policies in place. And so far we are happy that government is listening, and where they can, they are moving in the right speed, at the right speed. Yes.
And please, something to add?
I think she's covered a lot of that, yeah? I think for me, just to add, there is the education bit, like I mentioned earlier on, just creating that awareness and education around what is BPO, how does BPO operate, so that we have the proper regulations in place. Yeah.
Right. Well, this particular industry, much of it started with the contract manufacturing in manufacturing sector, right? And then now it's moved to the service industry. Kenya is, we hope it does not give up agriculture, but it's moving into a service-driven economy. So for people in the service sector who want to start, or who are looking to increase their income, yeah, how do they now take advantage of the opportunities? This is specifically for service providers. Yeah.
I'll give you a case in point. Once you're empowering the youth economically, then you'll see that they will start to also become job creators themselves. If you look, for example, you'll find a member of staff. Based on what you're paying them, they'll go and contract a farm in Isinya, and they will try and make a secondary income. By that action, they're actually becoming job creators because of working in the BPO sector. So if I'm paid well in the BPO sector, I will keep a cow up in the village, and that means that there's another economy that is starting to spur out of this BPO sector. So the minute the youth are economically empowered, then other sectors begin to benefit, whether it's agribusiness, whether it's other technology, facilitating industries. So the point is, the youth need to get jobs fast, make an income, then we don't have to worry on whether they can farm or they can employ other people as a spillover. If you look at Ann Peace, where she says they have employed 7,000, the spillover effect.
Actually, the spillover effect is spot on what Rosalind said. So at Summersource, we have what we call the Give Work Challenge. So Give Work Challenge is over and above you getting a job. We appreciate and we agree side hustles is a thing in Kenya, all right? And it's okay to have side hustles in Kenya, all right? And we decided to embrace that. And actually, we decided to fund businesses. So what happens is, whatever proceeds Summersource makes then go to the Laila Jenner Foundation. And then with the Laila Jenner Foundation, we have what we call the Give Work Challenge, which is like a competition of some sort where our staff actually come and pitch their business ideas to us. We go through the whole process, review etc, and we fund those businesses. Now, we have several people, just highlight one, who has started beekeeping someplace in Machakos, has copied the Summersource model and has employed the locals who are, the unlikely person to get a job to actually work in her farm. She has the best honey, I have to say that, okay? And we've seen that spiral. So that's just one example. We have somebody else who's actually started farming. Again, used the same model, employed people around the community that would most unlikely to get jobs. And so Give Work it's a ripple effect. We've trained you, we've given you a job, but then you've also started a business, and we train our people in running businesses. How do you run that business? So it's a ripple effect. As I mentioned earlier on, work begets work. You have an income, you start a business, you employ somebody else, that somebody else also. So it ultimately trickles down to, sustainability.
Right.
Yes, and even as we say that, we keep on saying that we have so many Kenyans in the source market, and the biggest source market is actually the US. And this is a call also for Kenyans living in diaspora. We enjoy when you send the dollars back home, but what if, and this is a challenge to Kenyans living in diaspora, send the jobs home. Yes, if you send a job to Kenya, not only are you creating a sustainable livelihood for the people back home, and we know that the Kenyans living in the US are in positions of influence. So even as we're saying, yes, we are going to create awareness about Destination Kenya, and we're going to create jobs in Kenya, what about the Kenyans living abroad? Can they send those jobs home? If they do, we as an association, we will give them a list of partners they could work with to ensure that those jobs are anchored well and those jobs are done with quality assurance already ingrained in the system. Mm-hmm. So we're saying that every Kenyan has a responsibility to create a job. Not just the people that we are employing in our BPOs, but even the Kenyans living abroad must begin to consider sending jobs back to Kenya. Mm-hmm. That is the only way we're going to make a difference. We're never going to have enough influencers or pay enough influencers, but we have enough Kenyans to create the magic we need.
Right, very important point there. Even as the jobs come from abroad and they get to Kenya, a lot of business activity is concentrated in the capital. What is this industry doing to take those jobs to mashinani?
Oh, thanks to the current cost inflation in the country, we've actually seen some businesses starting to move out of the capital. Now, what happens when you leave the capital is that your staff are able to access cheaper housing. Remember, everybody is looking for how to save work. You're able to get cheaper office spaces once you leave the capital. So if, like she said, talent is available everywhere, opportunities are not. So our members come from every part of this country. We have members from Kisumu, from Machakos, and obviously Nairobi has the biggest share. If you look at the people who are coming to invest in Kenya, they're not interested in having a BPO based in Nairobi. They're asking, is there infrastructure in Mombasa? We are one of the biggest players, just got an EPZ license to set up a delivery center in Mombasa. So BPO has nothing to do with being in the capital city. And that's why it's very good that the government is creating a digital superhighway, meaning they're opening up the country, meaning that I can set up a BPO in Uasin Gishu because there will be talent. They have an education. They need jobs. So this is the only industry that can actually be set up anywhere in the country. So it's not about the capital city, it's about infrastructure being spread across the country. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Infrastructure being spread across the country. The conversation in studio is about business process outsourcing and why this industry is very important as the next frontier for job creation in Kenya and just dealing with our unemployment issue. Remember, you can talk to us on Twitter. We are at KBC Channel 1. My personal Twitter handle is at Betty Kiptum. Talk to us. Tell us your experience. If you run a BPO or you are employed in one, tell us what your experience is, and we shall be sampling some of your thoughts during this particular program. In studio, let me just remind you, our guests. I'm speaking with Anne-Peace Alwala, who is the Vice President in charge of Global Delivery at Samasos, as well as the Chair Lady of the BPO Association of Kenya, Roslyn Maundu. Thank you very much for staying with us, ladies. Right. So what does the future look like for this industry now as we forge towards getting the 500,000 jobs, yeah? What does the future look like?
The future for us is, one, we are challenging government to become, a key catalyst for the industry. We had a very interesting program with the judiciary, where they actually outsourced transcription to the BPO sector. Mm-hmm. That program was a complete success, and it is a model that we are challenging the government that we can create those jobs through the BPO sector if they're outsourcing more. There's a lot of outsourcing work that the government can actually send out instead of hiring in-house. If we look at Philippines, when we talk about the 1.6, 1.7 million jobs, mm-hmm. government is a key outsourcer in the Philippines. India, the government is a key outsourcer. So in Kenya, the government, in order to meet its service delivery mandate, can actually leverage the business process outsourcing industry to create those jobs. So Government is a key pillar in outsourcing, and we want to see more conversations happening within government on how they can send more jobs to the industry. Yes.
Wow, that is great. Yeah.
And
Yes,
also just
go ahead.
appreciating the fact that the government is now listening, because you see, business process outsourcing is primarily, it's very private, the private sector, yeah? And it needs the government to actually listen to enable create this infrastructure. So it does help that the government is actually listening, and the government is keen to support the private sector to, you know, enhance what the BPO sector needs to grow.
I'm curious, since most of these companies that are outsourcing are from the Western markets, Europe and USA, what does the pay structure look like? And is there, let me call it pay fairness? Yeah, because maybe some of them are coming here because of the cheap labor. How does this work, and how is this prevented?
I mean, the government has guidelines on minimum wage, so that is taken care of. Okay, I mean, different organizations will pay differently. The same thing, I believe, even in broadcasting, different organizations will pay differently. But there is a benchmark of this is this grade, and this is what you pay for it, and these are the benefits that have to, or rather, need to accompany a certain scale. Now, I know the association is also in is in contact with the Labor Office. Again, today, the BPO sector, if I go to the classification, I have to find where I fit. Okay, and I know the association is engaging the Labor Ministry on this is what BPO is, or this is what, depending on what is it an associate, is it a team leader, is it a quality assurance, is it a manager? Within that guidelines from the Labor Office, this is what the minimum wage is. So as it is right now, it's not per se mentioning BPO, but I mean, BPO is growing, and it's going to be a force to reckon with. So we need that. We need to have that clearly outlined, that this is what the other pay is.
Yeah. You have something to add, Roslyn?
Yes, there's always a direct correlation between cost and quality, and the BPO sector is very cost sensitive. Part of the reason work is being sent out, obviously, is to create efficiency at a cost cost efficient. I wouldn't say cheap, but at a cost efficient level. So there's also the experience. There's also the skill level. There's also the type of work that you're undertaking. So all these factors will influence how much you're ultimately paid as a BPO worker. The beauty is, out of the people we have spoken to who are coming into the market, they're not looking to pay less. Nobody wants to pay a Kenyan BPO worker less than they would pay someone doing the same, undertaking the same task in Philippines or in India. What they're asking is, can you maintain the quality or even better it? And we know that the people who've been here before, who've been doing BPO work for the global market, they have actually gone ahead and put a very positive vibe in the global space about the quality of work that is coming out of Kenya. So that is something as Kenya we must leverage on, is that our people are able to give outstanding work. And as long as we maintain quality, I don't think cost will ever become a discussion. Generally, cost becomes a discussion when the quality of your output is deteriorating. Then as the person outsourcing, I want to pay less because you're giving me less quality. But if we're able as an industry to maintain quality, price stops being a factor. And the beauty is, Kenya is now known as a quality destination. Everybody is coming to Kenya because Kenya can deliver on quality. We're not saying we're going to be the cheapest, and we don't want to be the cheapest as a country, but we definitely can deliver quality work.
Do you have numbers of how many people are employed in the industry right now? Approximates?
We are in the process of undertaking a new study just to quantify, because as an association, we want as many people to join the membership, because only then can we have real statistics, and only then can we make a difference to our members. So at the moment, we're looking at 150,000. The number is a little bit all over the place because there was no ecosystem coordinator who was actually being held accountable for those numbers. So we're undertaking a new study, and we estimate the numbers should be 150,000, but we can deliver a lot more jobs to the industry. We have all the good news coming in. There's a new delivery center coming up in Tatu City. Those seats are sold. They're not seats that we're going, they always say, build and they will come. Kenya is the only country where we're being told we have already come.
Build.
Now build.
Now build.
Yes. Interesting.
So the business is already here. So it is for us to make sure that we have the right environment to actually capture as much demand as is available.
Right. So for an individual to deliver in a BPO, there is a certain work ethic that is required of them, right? So if you could speak to an individual who maybe is looking to enter into this space, yeah?
Okay.
How do they prepare themselves for these jobs that are coming, and what can they do to make sure that they are right for the job?
Okay.
And this.
So the BPO industry is unique in the sense that you may not need much preparation paperwork, but you need a lot of preparation mentally. Okay, it's the one industry that you don't quite require experience, okay, to get into employment, but you do have to have the grit, and you need to have the work ethic of I have to get to work on time. Again, majority of our teams are the youth, 20-something-year-olds to 25. So have the work ethic, have the desire to actually grow. I personally started off as an agent so many years ago, okay? And having grown here, I've learned this industry does not require you to go back to school and get a degree and then get promoted. It is, as Kenyans like saying, kujituma. It is exactly that, yeah? You go and give it your all and people notice. And once that is noticed, you get promoted very quickly and very fast, yeah? For a Kenyan who is looking to work in this industry, my mantra has always been have the right attitude. Just have the right attitude. I mean, you do need to go to school, you do need to, better yourself, but have the right attitude and come to it with that. The thing with this industry is we have invested in training because we appreciate that some of the work that we're doing is a bit foreign to Kenya. So we invest a lot in training in both ways, not just the work, but also the culture of the client you're working with, how the countries are, etc., to help you thrive. And we do that periodically. So it's not once train you, give you a job and go away. Yeah? So we do that periodically. So having the right attitude and the willingness to actually grind, yeah, and put your all, you will succeed.
You will succeed.
Yeah.
Yes, Roslyn?
Yes. Remember, we're taking work from a different time zone. So it'll take grit to be in this business. Most operations are 24 hours. So if you're coming into this industry, you'll find yourself arriving at work at 3 p.m. until 2 a.m. because you're working for somebody in a different time zone. So if you're not flexible, agile as a person, you will struggle with BPO as an industry. If you want career development, career growth, this is the industry to come. Come in when you're young. This is a young person's game.
It is a young person's game, that's for sure.
Come in, it is an entry-level job, but once you get the experience, there's so much growth, and this is a space where it's going to be vibrant for a long time. So if you're young, understand the BPO space. Interesting for me, when I was in high school, typing was a nationally examinable subject for me. Now, what has happened, fast forward, is that now we're looking at our youth and we're like, keyboard skills. So as basic as when you leave school, go and learn how to use a keyboard efficiently. Because thanks to the leap in technology, we all moved from TV to mobile phone. The computer, we are all typing a little bit with that one finger. It's not going to work for you. So if when government is even looking at the education system, I would suggest they put back typing as a nationally examinable subject because it will help you. It will serve you in the tech world. Yeah,
which is the future anyway.
Which is the only future currently.
Right. All right. This is BizCheck that you are watching. We are talking about business process outsourcing. We want to take a quick break. When we come back, this conversation continues. Do stay with Channel 1.
Thank you. How did we do?
이게? 그냥 나오면 이상하잖아. 뭐라도 들고 나와야지 도둑인 줄 알지.
아이 너무 옹색하잖아요.
니들은 낮부터 어디 있다가 지금 나타나? 아, 이거 셉셉이 새끼 떴다 그래가지고.
Wiki hii kwenye mkulima tuzungumzie kilimo kipya cha mnyama huyu konokono.
Maji tumefanyia utafiti tukapata kwamba ni maji ambayo yanaweza tengeneza baadhi ya bidhaa ambazo hutengeneza ngozi, pia hufanya ngozi irembeke, na zaidi kabisa pia inatumika katika utibabu wa baadhi ya magonjwa yanayohusu ngozi.
Jiunge nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1.
Mpaka niambie kitu. Manake ni wazi kuna kitu anajua lakini hataki kusema.
Hajui chochote.
Baby, you need to be very quick, baby. Panga everything chako, cha Abel, kila kitu mango zote, panga right now. Mambo si mazuri.
You got it?
Yeah, got it.
لاجل ما يحقق احلام ليله السفر قعدنا نتكلم بالساعات قالوا لي بص قدامك ما تبصش للي فات.
Mini Allah uwe na imani, mwingine falyastajibu li, na wewe pia umuitikie Mwenyezi Mungu. Kumuitikia Mungu ni vipi? Ni wewe utende matendo mema aliyokuamrisha Allah na uache haramu. Isiwe unaomba dua kumbe unakula chakula cha haramu.
Baadhi ya masharti haya ni kama kumcha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kuepukana na makatazo ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na kumtegemea yeye peke yake, kumpwekesha katika ibada zako zote kama Muislamu.
The global lottery market is growing at a rate of 4% annually. This growth is expected to be sustained all the way up to the year 2030. And the market is expected to reach $430 billion. Kenya is angling for a piece of the lottery pie.
The outcome of this lottery can be achieved only when there is aggressive and the correct operator. Of course, there will be government part and parcel in it to control them that they are not going out of the way, but operation and everything will be handled by the private operator only.
This week on Inside Government, we're talking to the chairperson of the Presidential Task Force on the establishment of a national lottery, Narendra Guru. Watch the conversation here on KBC Channel 1 with me, O'Brien Kimani.
I will never ever replace him. Never. You can just go back to where you came from and then come back when somebody else dies.
You're not the only one who lost a father, right? Is Mama Pauline?
No.
Do you have to be that nasty?
How much does she know?
And why didn't anyone tell Nick?
Who are we blackmailing? Don't walk with your face down, darling. As much as everyone is trying to put on a tough face right now.
We are tough.
Thank you for staying with Channel 1. You are watching BizCheck and my name is Betty Kiptum. In studio, we have been having quite an interesting conversation on business process outsourcing and why it matters in the economy and why it's the next frontier for job creation. And in studio, I have a BPO Association of Kenya chairperson. She is Roslyn Maundu, as well as Samaso's VP in charge of global delivery, and Peace Alwala. Thank you, ladies, for staying with me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Let's talk about just the fact that the government is looking to ensure that the 800,000 graduates who are churned out of our institutions annually get jobs and is looking critically into the BPO industry. And please, could you take that? How is the industry preparing for these numbers?
One, I'll have to say the government has its eye on the price, because how you're going to create these jobs is in the BPO sector. Okay? Now, why this is really, I think it's music to our ears, is in the sense that creating these jobs in BPO right now, as long as the government creates an environment suitable for us to thrive, drives policies that make BPOs thrive in Kenya, the BPO sector does the rest. A good point is it's the BPO organizations or the BPOs who actually go out there to clients and sell. So we're going and knocking doors of multinationals and telling them we can deliver this and we can deliver it in Kenya, and this has stats, as Rosalind said, we have the best quality. We have the best quality in this region, okay? And we're actually doing that, and we are actively doing that. So we are going outside, to get jobs in. And so the ask is create an environment to enable us thrive. And we will do the rest. We will create the jobs. Yeah.
All right. Rosalind, could you tell us what it would take for the BPO industry? I mean, how is the BPO industry looking at domestic work?
Yes. When you look at the BPO industry, they say charity begins at home. So our challenge is what are the local companies doing in terms of outsourcing? If any companies that are already operating in Kenya want to outsource any of their services, they can contact the association. We'll put you in touch with our members, and you can have a business discussion on what you need as a service. So that is one. Government can be a key driver of this industry. They can consider also outsourcing. But outside of the domestic work, we need to take the message out there that Kenya is open for business, Kenya is a quality destination, and Kenyans are ready to do those jobs day and night. So for us is, I know the president is very keen on what is happening in this industry, and also, take the message with us ahead of that. The thing about this industry is the country has to forgo businesses. As businesses, we cannot go and say, I'm from Kenya and I'm looking for BPO work. We have to first arrive as Kenya. And then once Kenya is known as a destination, then all the boats begin to benefit, so to speak. So we're asking for, more noise right from the top around Kenya as a destination of choice for BPO work. Once that happens, we trust that, and we know for a fact that the industry is ready to go and grab those opportunities. So is how do we market Kenya internationally? And that's why I'm saying this will take everybody. Kenyans living abroad, Kenyans living in Kenya, Kenyans working in the industry, everybody, it's all hands on deck so that we can actually grab our rightful share from the international market. So it's right from the top to the guy seated on a chair in BPO saying, yes, I'm a Kenyan worker, I'm working in BPO and I'm thriving, send us more jobs so that more Kenyans can actually get off the streets and do meaningful work.
Right, so when we are doing the magical Kenyas, we need to have BPO right there, side by side.
It's one of the saddest days I ever had was I actually attended the expo in Dubai, where it was the world had convened to, everybody was showcasing their country. And the first stand I went to was Kenya. And I was served a cup of tea, fantastic. I was given a cup of coffee, excellent. And then I said, then what? We were done.
Oh my.
So for me, the challenge has always been, if we're saying that we're creating jobs and that the biggest export that we can make right now is services that will be conducted by the Kenyan youth, we need to showcase that. We have Tembea Kenya, fantastic. We have Magical Kenya, fantastic. We have nothing that is saying bring jobs to Kenya because we have a youthful, well-educated workforce. So for me is, can we also make as much noise about our labor force as we make about our Masai Mara and our beautiful coast? So where is about our people and their abilities? Because that's the next frontier for creating jobs. Yeah.
Right. So ladies, we've talked quite a lot about the BPO industry and how the future is looking like. I would like to get from you what would be your closing remarks in terms of the future, the immediate future, and, you know, the long term. Let's start with you, Roslyn.
The immediate future, as we see it, is to attract the big players. They are interested in coming into the market. So as an association, we're talking to all potential investors to make sure that they're able to land into the country safely, because with them, they come with jobs, they come with experience, they come with opportunity for other BPOs to learn from them. So we want to attract at least 10 of the biggest players into the market so that they can actually catalyze the ecosystem. So the immediate future is, as we work with all the arms of government, is to ensure that we get the big boys in, because then the magic begins to happen.
Then the magic begins to happen. I like that. And please.
Yeah, I think for me, yes, the magic does need to happen. But also just not to belabor the point on, we have the greatest talent. We believe, and Summersource has tested this over the years, talent is equally distributed. Across the globe, it is equally distributed. The only thing is that opportunity is not. Summersource has shown that you give opportunity to the young, talented Kenyans, they thrive. And so just encouraging, you know, not just the BPO space, the government, all investors, like as you do that, also consider the social element of it. Like the talent we have here, the skills we have here are unmatched. And that is a fact.
That is a fact. Thank you very much, ladies. It has been interesting talking to you and learning about the BPO industry.
Thank you.
Asanteni sana. I have been speaking with Roslyn Maundu. She is the BPO Association of Kenya chairlady, as well as Ann P. Salwala, the VP in charge of global delivery at Summersource. We have talked about business process outsourcing, and Kenya should get ready for those 500,000 jobs that are coming within the next 3 years, as long as you take advantage of that market share that is already here in Kenya. We want to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have a conversation about affordable housing and why the manufacturing sector is a key industry in ensuring that goal is achieved. Stay with BizCheck. Stay with KBC Channel 1.
نتكلم بالساعات قالوا لي بصوا قدامك ما تبصش للي فات
mini Allah uwe na imani, mwingine falyastajibu li, na wewe pia umuitikie Mwenyezi Mungu. Kumuitikia Mungu ni vipi? Ni wewe utende matendo mema aliyokuamrisha Allah na uache haramu. Isiwe unaomba dua kumbe unakula chakula cha haramu.
Baadhi ya masharti haya ni kama kumcha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kuepukana na makatazo ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na kumtegemea yeye peke yake, kumpwekesha katika ibada zako zote kama Muislamu.
Will never ever replace him. Never. You can just go back to where you came from and then come back when somebody else dies.
You're not the only one who lost a father, right? Is Mama Pauline?
No.
Do you have to be that nasty?
How much does she know?
And why didn't anyone tell Nick?
Who are we blackmailing? Don't walk with your face down, darling. As much as everyone is trying to put on a tough face right now.
We are tough.
My name is Krish Bejusha. I go to school in Martial Academy, Nairobi. I play golf as a sport, and I'm playing this for this reason in the under 16 category.
You can actually use stories to try and explore your feelings. And that's why I feel so happy that I found this book. Sometimes I feel sunny.
Today I'm going to show you guys on how to make the yummiest bubble donuts. They're tiny, small, yet so delicious.
Bandidas las
wouldn't have told Fabiola that he's not going to bother her anymore. Tell me the truth.
I'm just here because I care for Alonso and because I want to know what's going on.
This has nothing to do with lovers. This has something to do with feelings.
Oh.
I see you finally understand.
Las Partidas. The global lottery market is growing at a rate of 4% annually. This growth is expected to be sustained all the way up to the year 2030. And the market is expected to reach $430 billion. Kenya is angling for a piece of the lottery pie.
The outcome of this lottery can be achieved only when there is aggressive and the correct operator. Of course, there will be government part and parcel in it to control them that they are not going out of the way, but operation and everything will be handled by the private.
We're talking to the chairperson of the Presidential Task Force on the establishment of a national lottery, Narendra Guru. Watch the conversation here on KBC Channel 1 with me, O'Brien Kimani.
I will never ever replace him. Never. You can just go back to where you came from and then come back when somebody else dies.
You're not the only one who lost a father, right? Is Mama Pauline?
No.
Do you have to be that nasty?
How much does she know?
And why didn't anyone tell Nick?
Who are we blackmailing? Don't walk with your face down, darling. As much as everyone is trying to put on a tough face right now.
We are tough.
Your goodness just carry me go.
Do you think I look nice? Do you think am I beautiful? Like, should ask questions that really triggered me to really wonder, like, is my mom okay?
The biggest mess that it created in me was identity crisis, where you don't know who you are, you don't know how you're supposed to behave.
Yes, I know kuna a lot of parting spirit. Sometimes inakaa ni kama wasee tu wame-lose it.
That caused me a lot of fear, and I realized that even in class, even in the outside world, I would have this sort of fear.
I think maparo wengi washahata. Maparo wengi hawajakuwa there. Walikuwa najua bora nimemlipia fee, ako fiti, na hawataki ku-confront.
Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, sing hallelujah,
hallelujah. Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tuzungumzie kilimo kipya cha mnyama huyu konokono.
Maji tumefanyia utafiti tukapata kwamba ni maji ambayo yanaweza tengeneza baadhi ya bidhaa ambazo hutengeneza ngozi, pia hufanya ngozi irembeke, na zaidi kabisa pia inatumika katika utibabu wa baadhi ya magonjwa yanayohusu ngozi.
Jiunge nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1.
Thank you for watching KBC Channel 1. This is BizCheck, and we are now in the second hour of the program. During this particular hour, we want to talk about affordable housing. The government wants to ensure that 200,000 houses are constructed annually under the affordable housing program. How is this going to be achieved, and what is the role of the local manufacturing industry? To have this conversation is Shem Oduya. He is the managing director in charge of King's Mabati. Thank you for joining us, Shem.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. So 200,000 houses annually. The government wants to ensure that is met. The manufacturing sector, what is your role in this, and how are you preparing to make sure that you're delivering on this?
Thank you. First of all, affordable housing is really a key pillar in economic development of this country. I'm aware that one of the pillars of even the previous regime was affordable housing. In addition to that, it was manufacturing. in addition to that, they were also looking at universal healthcare and another pillar. How the government is working with the local manufacturers to ensure affordable housing. First of all, I think the government has to create incentives, to the local developers to ensure that their cost of production is reduced. Secondly, there are also some tax incentives the government has been trying to issue to the local contractors and also the developers. In addition to that, the government has entered into public-private partnerships, to just subsidize the cost of creating and building this affordable housing. But ultimately, as a manufacturer, we are looking at the government really reducing the cost of raw materials. So, for example, in my industry, which is Mabati, we import steel, which is very costly in terms of just bringing it to the door of the consumer. And how the government can help us do that to be able to create affordable housing is also to look at the tax incentives towards the steel.
The government is looking to improve or increase local production and to also increase consumption of locally made goods. And as you say, the tax environment is not that favorable. How exactly would the government balance between ensuring that products that are produced locally actually are competitive in the market vis-a-vis ensuring that you get the taxes that are required from the imported materials?
That is a very tricky balance. We are looking at a government on one side. They want to raise tax in order to feed their budget. At the same time, they're talking about affordable housing. This is a very tricky balance. I think in the recent past, the government has, first of all, in the last budget, the government put, I think, 25 billion or 32 billion shillings towards affordable housing. That is one way they've done it. And there's also a platform that the government created called Boma Yangu, yes. or something of the sort. This is an initiative to allow the government to do at least 200 to 250 houses each and every year. All right. So as local manufacturers, we can partner with the government through, providing affordable and relatively cheap raw materials. To the contractors. So how they can do that, they can ensure that each and every raw material that goes into, the building of the Boma Yangu are actually sourced locally and not actually imported duty-free.
You've just talked about the affordability of materials that go into that sector. And I'm curious, when you're coming up with products for the affordable housing industry, how do you ensure that you're giving it at a cheaper or at a more affordable rate, but ensuring that the quality is still maintained?
I'll tell you, this is a very tricky balance because remember, we work in an ecosystem where, as manufacturers, we don't really control all the factors of production. So, for example, if you look at the costs that goes into these raw materials, there's the cost of the raw material itself. There's the taxes that goes into that. There's the labor that goes into that. There's also, other operational costs that go into that. And so when the government puts or taxes this, sometimes as manufacturers we are left in no man's land. But how we make sure that we do that is we make sure that at least we have bare minimum cost, to run our business, and just to balance on what the client really wants.
Access to these materials. Yes, you and the rest of the industry players, you're looking at the government, but also there are Kenyans who are constructing affordable houses on their own, you know. They're choosing that direction instead of going through the government. So accessing these materials at an affordable rate, is it possible in Kenya right now?
It is actually possible. First of all, we need to dissect when we talk of affordable materials. What are we really looking at? You know, and especially when we are looking at the housing. So, a house, when you build, probably there's a foundation, there are the walls, okay, which are built by stones. These are materials that are locally affordable and can be found. Then we go to the roof, which is mostly built by steel. As a country, I think we cannot sustain or we cannot supply the demand of the country. So we have to import most of the steel materials to the country. In order for the government to ensure that all the factors needed to construct this house are actually affordable, they have to look into the tax issue. Yes.
So they could, if they don't do that, you have an affordable housing program, but at the end of the day, the houses are not really affordable for the common mananchi.
Absolutely. So, as I said, we work in an ecosystem that is controlled by the government. Okay. So, if the government, for example, says affordable housing, what are we talking about? Affordable to who? Again, to a mama mboga, what is affordable to them? Okay. Remember, they say averagely in Kenya, people earn about 20,000 on average per person. Now, what is affordable to this person who takes home 20,000? What is affordable to this person who takes home 50? And what is affordable? So, this ecosystem is largely controlled by, you know, the government, the policies and the framework that the government puts in place. And that's why there's also the aspects of doing ease of doing business. So if doing business in Kenya becomes a little bit tricky, then we are caught up. Yes.
For a very long time, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and manufacturers in general, have been complaining about the high cost of production, specifically the high cost of energy. When you look at the steps that the government has taken in the recent past, it somehow seems to beat the idea that they are actually supporting local manufacturing. What are your thoughts on this from a manufacturer's point of view?
I think the government has to really be sincere in terms of what they really want to do with the local manufacturers. So we can't talk about affordable housing, affordable manufacturing, yet the cost of production is high. So for example, you talk of electricity. Electricity, the taxes have been increasing. In addition to manufacturing, there's also, in some other areas, we use fuel, so petroleum products. You are aware that just recently in the last Finance Act, you know, the VAT increased from 8 to 16. So again, I think we need to have a very sincere discussion whether this affordable housing is just at the face of it or it is really affordable. As I said, what is really affordable to you and to me, those are totally different. But remember, if you look at the government plan, what they're looking at is affordable housing for the low-income earners and the middle-income earners. Yes.
So the low-income earners are these people who earn like 20,000?
20,000, 24,000 and below.
Yes, 24,000
that is what they say.
Right. This program as it is, there are some houses that have already been delivered. Do you see this happening for the government? Do you see them delivering it?
Yes, I think what it takes is the will. And as I said, as the government tries to collect its taxes by widening its tax base, there are also other opportunities of raising, funds to do this, other than the taxes. And I think the government should explore the aspect of using public-private partnership, to fund some of these ambitious, I would say, ideas. So depending on the strategies they put in place, I'm very positive that they would achieve it.
Right. Part of the government's goal in ensuring that there's affordable housing is to create jobs during construction. And there are the jobs on the site, and also there are the jobs to be created in farms like yours, in the manufacturing industry, when output is increased because, there is more demand in the affordable housing market. So what is the industry doing to ensure that it's preparing for this eventuality when now we need more from you and the demand has increased? The industry you're in.
So for us, definitely there are times when there's huge demand, especially in the roofing industry. But in the recent past, I think just after the last year's election, 2022 election, there's been a decrease in spending, or I would say there's reduced appetite to do capital-intensive projects like construction. But at times we experience that surge or demand in construction material, and this happens probably towards the end of the year or towards holiday periods when people have time to really go home and do some of these projects and do long-term investments.
Right. So beyond requiring the government to do this and do that for the industry, are there things that the industry is doing on its own to improve itself as an industry?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things we've done as an industry, we have an association, of course, the Association of Manufacturers, that is a body which came together to champion for the Mabati or manufacturers. There's also other things we do as, for example, Mabati manufacturers. We try to lobby the government to, see the business sense, especially from the employment perspective. We look at the small businesses. How many people are we employing? So we lobby the government and ask them, listen, if you kill this industry, this number of people are gonna get out of employment. And so those are some of the ways we are lobbying the government to reduce the costs.
Right. Part of looking into the future is ensuring that operations are sustainable, especially right now when we are looking to ensure that we are using green technology or just dealing with the climate change issues and anything that impacts climate change. So as an industry, is there anything that you're doing to ensure sustainability?
Definitely. So one of the areas as a company we are trying to deal with is we are trying to work with our partners who are abroad to do research on ways where we can use relatively cheap material, recyclable material, to produce the same roofing sheet, not now Mabati. Okay. All right. And one product that has already been found is where instead of using iron sheet, you use plastic, for roofing. It is relatively cheap, but now with the ban of plastic again, with the ban of plastic again, you find, especially in Kenya, we are at a crossroad. But these are products that have been used, especially in Southeast Asia, especially in creating affordable housing. They've been used in many other countries, to just drive the agenda of sustainability.
When you look at the building industry as a whole, do you think that in terms of going green, the industry is going in the right direction, especially adopting greener technologies, and sometimes they are actually cheaper than what we already have currently? Do you think that is happening?
It's a very tricky balance, I will tell you. And especially in my industry, if you look at steel, so most of the big companies, they use coal to, as a raw material for production, because that is the locally available, one of the locally available materials. Okay. Embracing green energy has really been a challenge because of the amount of energy required to run this kind of machine and this kind of operation. So yes, as a company and as an industry, we are embracing green energy, for the future, but it takes a lot of stakeholders consultation and consensus for us to have a common understanding on the way forward.
For companies such as yours, there's the issue of, I'm going to say, social responsibility, or ensuring that the community within which you operate in is thriving as much as you are thriving. Are there any activities you have on this front?
Yes, so currently as Kings Mabati, first of all, before even looking at the community, you first have to have your house in order.
Yes.
So you can't serve the community, yet part of the staff who are part of the community are. So we have a very robust social welfare just within the company to ensure that staff members' welfare are taken care of. When I talk of this, I mean work-life balance, When I talk of this, I mean, we have ways of addressing their individual needs, okay? And at a community level, we partnered with some NGOs, who probably have, constructions they're doing for schools, constructions, social responsibility they're also doing for, for example, hospitals and things like that. So yes, we've been very active in that front. And just to highlight, so as Kings Mabati, we are currently spread in 4 locations. We've had some initiatives around Kibera area. We have a branch in Migori, which is in western part, Nyanza region, former Nyanza region. Around where our branch is, we also have a lot of initiatives by trying to support the local widows and orphans, to do construction and sometimes also to support with schools. And that has also been replicated in Kisumu and Luanda, just after Maseno, where we have those initiatives.
And since you are in this industry, I'd like to ask this. There was a time I visited a church that was built in 1900, sometime around that time. It's built with iron sheets, all round. It has the original that was used. But currently it's very difficult to find some iron sheets that last that long. What is happening? Is it that the quality has gone down? What is happening in the industry?
I think that is, I would say, a big problem that, again, the government really needs to come in, because that is solely the prerogative of the Kenya Standard. Remember, we have Kenya Standards,
yes,
and Kenya Bureau of Standards to look at the quality. But remember, I think when you said when you're growing up, that was probably in the 80s or 70s. There were monopoly of companies,
It was in the 90s.
In the 90s.
Not yet here, in the 80s and 70s.
All right. Yes. Yeah. But even in the 90s, there were very few companies that used to manufacture mabatis. I think probably there were 2. I won't mention them. And therefore, the mabati or the steel industry as a whole was largely regulated because there were very few players. And now with a lot of players in the industry, there are also other players who take shortcuts, okay? And that's why we have probably some other products like the ones I think you've seen somewhere not lasting as long. But I will tell you, that is really a minority.
Okay.
majorly most of the products in the industry have met KEB standards and should be able to give you the service as per the KEB standards.
When someone is building their house, do they just go shop for any mabati, or are there mabatis for specific houses? I need you to speak here as an expert now.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, first of all, basic principle, mabati is used for roofing.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So someone wants to build a house or to roof his house, he will look for mabati. The second thing to look at when you're buying mabati is probably for aesthetics, you look at the pattern. Okay. So there are some mabatis designs, like for example at King's Mabati we have different types of mabati. We have King style, which looks like a tiled kind of mabati. They're relatively expensive. We have versatile, also a very beautiful type of mabati. Then we have also those ones at relatively at the lower level, which is colored corrugated. Then we have box profile. So when you're deciding on which mabati to use, again, based on what I've told you, there's also the aspect of the budget, all right? Then, so if your budget is low, you can come to us and we can advise you that, listen, based on your project, for example, you can go for this mabati. Then there's also the aspect of longevity. So are you building just a temporary house for 1 or 2 years, for example, or probably you're using it for hoarding, that is fencing? We can advise you on which type of mabati to go for, so that you don't overkill. Overkilling, I mean, you spend more for something that you can, yes.
Right, so that is how to go about it.
Exactly.
Awesome. I hope you've got some tips. If you're building, you will know what to do when you go shopping for your roofing needs. I'm speaking with Shem Oduya. He's the managing director in charge of King's Mabati, and we are talking about what role the manufacturing industry is playing in ensuring that the government achieves its affordable housing goal. Shem, when you talk about job creation in the manufacturing industry, talk about the safety of those people, because they work with very big machines, dangerous machines. If something goes wrong, how do you ensure the safety of your labor?
All right. Again, in a workplace, especially like a factory where we operate,
yes,
there are rules and standards governing that kind of space. So, for example, there's fire and safety guidelines. You know, where you have to put the fire extinguisher. You have to make sure that you have the exit doors. Okay, so there are rules and regulation governing that. Then there are also rules, governing how the employees should be donned in terms of protective equipment. You know, in addition to that, they also need to be taken for regular, training to just make sure that they freshen their knowledge. There are also rules regarding, the ventilation of the building, and the government has put very robust, frameworks. So working in collaboration with NEMA, the county government, and such like bodies, they put up very robust checklists to ensure that each and every manufacturing establishment complies with these rules and regulations.
And that is done in your organization?
Absolutely.
Right. That is encouraging to know. Remember, we are following up on a number of functions that are going on across the country. One of them is the Kenya Water and Sanitation International Conference and Exhibition 2023. We shall be telling you what is happening there in a little bit. Also in Achola, we are following up on there's a function where Interior PS Raymond Omolo is inspecting a guard of honor. He's expected to that particular guard of honor is mounted by private security guards, ahead of the launch of the Miale Security Institute. It's happening in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. Our reporter Achola Simon is on the ground and shall be updating us within this particular show on what is happening on the ground. But at 30 minutes past 11, we want to take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, the conversation on the role of manufacturing in affordable housing continues. Stay with us.
Mpaka niambie kitu. Manake ni wazi kuna kitu anajua lakini hataki kusema.
Ajui chochote.
Baby, need to be very quick, baby. Pack everything chako, cha Abel, kila kitu mango zote panga right now. Mambo si mazuri.
You got it?
Yeah, got it.
Negraya wouldn't have told Fabiola that he's not going to bother her anymore. Tell me the truth.
I'm just here because I care for Alonso and because I want to know what's going on.
This has nothing to do with lovers. This has something to do with feelings.
Oh.
I see you finally understand.
Las Bandidas. The global lottery market is growing at a rate of 4% annually. This growth is expected to be sustained all the way up to the year 2030. And the market is expected to reach $430 billion. Kenya is angling for a piece of the lottery pie.
The outcome of this lottery can be achieved only when there is aggressive and the correct operator. Of course, there will be government part and parcel in it to control them that they are not going out of the way, but operation and everything will be handled by the private operator only.
This week on Inside Government, we're talking to the chairperson of the Presidential Task Force on the establishment of a national lottery, Narendra Guru. Watch the conversation here on KBC Channel 1 with me, O'Brien Kimani.
لاجل ما يحقق احلام ليله السفر قعدنا نتكلم بالساعات قالوا لي بصوا قدامك ما تبصش للي فات
mini Allah uwe na imani nyingine falyastajibu li na wewe pia umuitikie Mwenyezi Mungu. Kumuitikia Mungu ni vipi? Ni wewe utende matendo mema aliyokuamrisha Allah na uache haramu. Isiwe unaomba dua kumbe unakula chakula cha haramu.
Baadhi ya masharti haya ni kama kumcha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kuepukana na makatazo ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala na kumtegemea yeye peke yake, kumpwekesha katika ibada zako zote kama Muislamu.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tuzungumzie kilimo kipya cha mnyama huyu konokono.
Maji tumefanyia utafiti tukapata kwamba ni maji ambayo yanaweza tengeneza baadhi ya bidhaa ambazo hutengeneza ngozi, pia hufanya ngozi irembeke, na zaidi kabisa pia inatumika katika utibabu wa baadhi ya magonjwa yanayohusu ngozi.
Jiunge nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1.
Your goodness just carry me go.
Do you think I look nice? Do you think am I beautiful? Like, should ask questions that really triggered me to really wonder, like, is my mom okay?
The biggest mess that it created in me was identity crisis, where you don't know who you are, you don't know how you're supposed to behave.
Yes, I know kuna a lot of parting spirit. Sometimes inakaa ni kama wasee tu wame lose it.
That caused me a lot of fear, and I realized that even in class, even in the outside world, I would have this sort of fear.
I think maparo wengi washahata. Maparo wengi hawajakuwa there, walikuwa wanajua bora nimemlipia fee ako fiti na hawataki ku confront.
Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, sing hallelujah, hallelujah,
Thank you for watching BizCheck on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum. In studio, I am with Shem Oduya. He is the Managing Director in charge of King's Mabati, and we are talking about the role of local manufacturing to ensure that the government achieves its affordable housing goal. And Shem, before we went on break, you were telling us, earlier on you told us about how the government needs to ensure that it's incentivizing the local producers. The government is looking to buy windows and doors and all that from manufacturers. Do you think iron sheets should be included in this list?
Absolutely, because, you know, as I said, if you look at a house in totality, there are roofing sheets, yes, of course. Yes. So when you look at, and remember, roofing sheets are made of steel. So when they're talking of giving incentives to the Juakali who make the windows and the doors from the steel, it's still the same product. It's only that it's still the same raw material. It's only that it creates different products. Yeah. So the government should look at it holistically. So when they say the Juakali people will be, you know, making the windows and the doors and you know, working with the government, in partnership with the government to provide some of these products. Remember, some of these products, they're also taxed. So there's also need to look at that aspect. You know, before the product, there are those costs that go into that product. Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about regional integration and the East African community looking to open up a trade between the member states. What is the industry doing to ensure that it is tapping this market that is opening up and ensuring that production reaches the levels where it can, you know, supply the market?
Absolutely. There's a lot of attraction towards opening the East African, you know, market. In paper, it's there, but still there are those trade barriers. I think just recently there were issues between us and Tanzania, you know, regarding import and export of I think cereals. So the government has worked round the clock, and I think the whole East African communities are working round the clock to ensure that the integration succeeds. But of course, there's also the aspects of a teething problem, I would call them, that we have to, you know, work with to ensure that this is a success. As an industry, I look at East African market as a very rich market. You know, and what we are doing as an industry is to try to look for partnerships, okay, with other partners in other countries, you know, so that we expand our reach and footprint in those regions, and especially just to our next door neighbors, Tanzania and Uganda. There are also a lot of there's also a lot of demand for steel products in Sudan and Somalia. Remember, because of the situation there. So what we are doing as an industry, for those who've been here longer, they are probably going the merger and acquisition way. You know, just acquiring most of the companies probably on the other side of the border. But I think the most important thing that most of the other companies are chasing is through partnerships and agency kind of framework.
Right. The manufacturing industry, specifically the steel manufacturing that you deal in, it is highly capital intensive, and it from an outside view it almost looks like a big boys club, you know. I don't know if there is room for SMEs to grow in this industry? Is there?
As you rightfully put it, Mabati, being in the steel industry, it's very capital intensive, and I think there's also room for the small SMEs to go into that space. And the reason why I'm saying that is if the banks are currently other international partners are currently working with the banks, to provide subsidized loan facilities. All right. There are also other financial institutions which are offering cheap loans. Okay, and there's also the aspect where people can look at merging. All right, so merging to consolidate their asset base, so that they can grow big. So even the SMEs, I think with the right intention and with the right mind, they're able to climb up the ladder.
They're able to climb up the ladder. What kind of skill, especially seeing that you deal in the industry, how much in terms of, do you have the skill set? Is the skill set available in the Kenyan market for this industry?
One good thing with Kenya is you'll find people are really well educated, and also our population, and that not lack of, but inadequate job opportunities make people, find ways of surviving. So definitely we have the skill set within the country to know to just run some of these industries, right from the top, from the CEO level, down to the cleaner, or So yes, I think as a country we have that skill set within us.
Right. So you're saying you've not struggled to look for human resource.
We've not struggled to look for human resource, but there's just a caveat to that. So there's the aspect of the qualification, which is the skill, education, but there's also the culture.
Okay.
All right. Or attitude. So I think there's been talk around, especially employers saying sometimes getting employees is very difficult, workers. And the reason why getting workers is difficult is because getting honest workers is difficult. So yes, there's the skill set, but people have to do a little bit more. Are you able to get honest workers who are able to just live on an honest day work?
So that's definitely an attitude change that needs to happen in the country.
Exactly, and avoid the get rich quickly syndrome.
Well, that seems to be gaining traction in the past few years.
Yes, absolutely.
Unfortunately. So as we come to a close of this conversation, Shem, what does the future look like for this industry?
I think steel industry is one of the biggest. I think it's the second biggest industry, globally, and the future is therefore very, very bright. If you look at the Kenyan context, the population is growing, and as the population grows, there'll be definitely demand for roofing industry, for roofing sheets. So I see the future being very bright, not only in Kenya, but also globally.
Future being bright, not only in Kenya, but also globally. Just let me take you back a little bit. For the industry, how have you adjusted to the changing times in terms of the economic turmoil the global economy is going through?
So we've been in business for, let's say, I can say like 3 years. It has really been tough. One of the challenges I think we've experienced is access to capital, which with the global recession, I think also the lenders kind of hold onto their purse a little bit tough, a little bit hard. So how we've managed to do that is just through creating efficiencies, within our working space. So You look at, for example, costs that you may not be able to cover, or you can do without, you cut them. Another thing is, at the end of the day, as much as you want to make profit, you also look at the quality of the products, because that keeps the customers coming back, right? So that has been our strong point. In addition to that, we've also been very strong with customer experience, you know, as a company. So it's very important that even with hard economic times, a company sticks to its values in order to give experiential services.
Right, that's very important. Thank you so much, Shem. I'll give you a minute or two to give us your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. So, as Kings Mabati, we welcome you to visit our shops. We have a footprint in Nairobi. Our factory is in Nairobi. You can also come to our branches in Kisumu. You can also come to our branches in Luanda, that is towards Maseno. We also have a branch in Migori. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Jenga
much.
ufalme wako na Kings Mabati.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Shem Oduya, Managing Director in charge of Kings Mabati, talking to us about what the manufacturing sector is doing to ensure that it enables the government to meet its goal. And of course, he has said that the industry needs to be incentivized to ensure that they can produce for the local market at affordable rates, because most of their raw materials are imported. That has been a conversation about manufacturing for affordable housing with Shem Oduya, Managing Director of Kings Mabati. My name is Betty Kiptum. I would like to close the program right here. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Bye-bye.
Mpaka niambie kitu. Manake ni wazi kuna kitu anajua, lakini hataki kusema.
Hajui chochote.
Baby, you need to be very quick, baby. Pack everything chako, cha Abel, kila kitu mango zote, panga right now. Mambo si mazuri.
You got it?
Yeah, got it.
Negarya wouldn't have told Fabiola that he's not going to bother her anymore. Tell me the truth.
I'm just here because I care for Alonso and because I want to know what's going on.
This has nothing to do with lovers. This has something to do with feelings.
Oh.
I see you finally understand.
Las Partidas. The global lottery market is growing at a rate of 4% annually. This growth is expected to be sustained all the way up to the year 2030. And the market is expected to reach $430 billion. Kenya is angling for a piece of the lottery pie.
The outcome of this lottery can be achieved only when there is aggressive and the correct operator. Of course, there will be government part and parcel in it to control them that they are not going out of the way, but operation and everything will be handled by the private operator only.
This week on Inside Government, we're talking to the chairperson of the Presidential Task Force on the establishment of a national lottery, Narendra Guru. Watch the conversation here on KBC Channel 1 with me, O'Brien Kimani.
Although this island is very small, it has an incredibly eventful history. And you can learn more about it in the Heligoland Museum. Jörg Andres is the boss here. He tells me that this island used to be a pirate's nest, a navy fort and a trading post. In the early 18th century, it was just as important as the international port of Hamburg is today. Heligoland was once part of Denmark, then of Great Britain. It was not until 1890 that the island became German, a fiercely contested piece of ground. When was the most dramatic moment in the history of the island?
The most dramatic moment was definitely the end of World War II and the Great Bombardment. Everybody had to be evacuated. And then came the Big Bang in April 1947, resulting in the complete destruction of the island's buildings.
The British occupying forces once tried to destroy all the island's military facilities with 6.7 kilotons of explosives. Never again should it be used for military purposes. For many years, Heligoland remained uninhabitable.
In 1954, the population began returning to the island, and tourism immediately started up here again. First, they slept in tents on Duna, because there was no place at all to stay here on the island. There were no houses or anything, so they stayed in little tents on Duna, and stands sold whatever they needed. You could pass through and buy little souvenirs, and people came in droves to see Heligoland again.
Soon tourists came in masses, not because of the beautiful nature, but to buy duty-free liquor and cigarettes. How did the island endure this? I just imagine 10 or 12,000 visitors here on this really small island.
It was terrible, it must be said. There was no room between all the people. They were just herded past the shops and through here, shoulder to shoulder. You might see something nice in one of the shops, but you didn't stand a chance of getting to it to buy it. You were just pushed on ahead by the crowds until you ended up back at the ship and had to sail home again.
How come prices are so cheap on Heligoland?
That's a privilege we had from our